The moment the waiter whispered, "Sir, I think she's not coming." The world around Rowan Hale seemed to collapse in on itself. The glowing Christmas lights outside the cafe window blurred behind a wash of disappointment. The soft music felt suddenly mocking, and the empty chair across from him became the cruelest reminder that even on a season built around love and miracles, some hearts were simply forgotten. Rowan stared down at his untouched cup of ginger tea, his reflection wavering in the golden liquid, and tried to swallow the lump of defeat rising in his throat. He had promised himself he'd try again, one last date, one last chance at feeling wanted after years of loneliness. But here he was, rejected without a word by someone who had never even met him. And with that he felt the familiar ache of failure tighten in his chest. If you believe in kindness, healing, and second chances, please take a moment to like, comment, share, and subscribe to the channel Everyday Kindness. Your support helps stories like this reach more hearts. Rowan wasn't the kind of man people pitied easily. On most days, he hid his pain well. He worked as a handyman in his small town, fixing broken fences, leaky pipes, and squeaky doors for neighbors who often told him he had a heart too big for the life he lived. But the truth remained. He had been raising his 7-year-old daughter, Briar, alone since losing his wife 3 years ago to a sudden aneurysm. That single loss had reshaped his world, turning him from a devoted husband to a grieving widower overnight, a man forced to learn to braid hair, comfort nightmares, and cook pancakes with smiley faces just to make his daughter laugh again. Christmas used to be his wife's season. She had always filled their home with cinnamon rolls, handmade garlands, and way too many stockings. Now he tried to keep the traditions alive for Briar's sake, but the holidays still stung like fresh wounds. The blind date had been a suggestion from a co-worker, a last-ditch attempt to help Rowan move forward. He had agreed only because Briar had squeezed his face between her tiny palms and told him she wished he had someone to hug besides her. And so, on this bright December afternoon, he had put on his cleanest shirt, shaved, and tried to gather the pieces of confidence he barely possessed. He sat waiting for an hour, and then another. Until reality settled, he had been stood up again. Suddenly he felt foolish for trying. He left the cafe with slow steps, the cold air clearing his senses but not his disappointment. He walked down the snowy sidewalk, hands deep in his pockets, passing families taking Christmas photos, couples sharing warm pastries, and children laughing as they chased each other with scarves. Each sight felt like a reminder of what he didn't have. Just as he was about to turn the corner toward the parking lot, he heard a small voice calling his name. It wasn't Briar, though for a moment his heart leapt. It was a familiar neighbor, Mrs. Calloway, waving frantically from outside a small community center. She knew Rowan fixed things around the neighborhood, and she told him they needed urgent help with a broken heater before the afternoon Christmas charity event started. Rowan, ever the helper, nodded and stepped inside. The center was buzzing with activity. Volunteers decorated tables with paper snowflakes and lined up gift bags for local families struggling through the winter. But one person stood out among the crowd, Alicia Northwood. She wore a simple white sweater, her hair tied loosely, her eyes shining with a warmth that made the room feel brighter. She wasn't glamorous or overly dressed. She looked like someone carved from gentleness itself. Rowan didn't know her, but something in the way she moved, calm, organized, quietly confident, felt strangely soothing. She was directing volunteers, carrying boxes, comforting a crying child, all with effortless grace. Rowan pulled his gaze away and focused on repairing the heater. As he worked, he listened to the laughter, the snippets of conversations, the genuine sense of community that filled the room. For a moment, he forgot about the failed blind date. When he finished, Alicia approached him with gratitude shimmering in her eyes, thanking him for helping on such short notice. Rowan brushed it off with modesty, saying he was just happy to help. Their exchange was brief, polite, and ordinary. Yet something about it lingered in the air like warm cinnamon. When the event began, Rowan was about to slip out quietly, but Mrs. Calloway insisted he stay. She told him that families from around the town were gathering for the holiday meal and that his daughter had been invited earlier that morning. Before he could ask how, Briar came running in through the door, bundled in her red coat, cheeks flushed from the cold. She launched into his arms, her laughter sweeping away the last fragments of his gloom. She told him she had been helping wrap gifts with the volunteers and that she wanted to stay for the whole event. And so Rowan stayed. He ate with the group, talked to neighbors, and even helped distribute food trays. Amid the cheerful chaos, he kept noticing Elysia, watching how she comforted stressed parents, helped children make Christmas crafts, and shared gentle smiles with everyone who walked past her. Rowan had seen many kinds of kindness in his life, but there was something intensely genuine about hers, something he couldn't quite explain. She was the kind of person who made others breathe easier simply by existing near them. But while helping stack chairs after the event, Rowan overheard two volunteers discussing Elysia. She was a single mother, they said, raising her 2-year-old son alone after her fiancé abandoned them. She worked double shifts at a local clinic to keep up with bills, and still found time to volunteer every holiday season. Rowan felt a pang in his chest, not of pity, but of understanding. He knew what it felt like to face life alone, to carry burdens that never truly lightened. Their second interaction came unexpectedly. As Rowan was picking up fallen craft supplies from under a table, Elysia knelt down to help him. For the first time they spoke longer than a thank you. They talked about children, about exhaustion, about how strange holidays felt when trying to fill spaces left behind by people no longer there. He found himself opening up more than he intended, admitting he had been on a blind date earlier that day that never happened. He expected pity, maybe embarrassment. Instead, Elysia's expression softened with sincerity, and she told him gently that the woman who rejected him had simply missed out on someone rare. That simple sentence made something shift inside Rowan, like a cold wall cracking under the warmth of a new sunrise. He hadn't felt seen in years, not truly. But Elysia made him feel seen in less than an hour. The event ended near mid-afternoon. People began leaving, carrying their bags of donated gifts and leftover treats. Rowan packed up his things, helped Briar into her coat, and thanked the volunteers. He expected the day to end, expected to return to his quiet home and try to forget the humiliation of the morning. But life had other plans. As Rowan walked Briar toward the exit, Elysia hurried up behind them. Her voice trembled slightly, not with fear but with something braver. She asked Rowan if he could stay a little longer. She said she needed his help with something. When he agreed, she led him to the small community garden behind the center, where leftover decorations were being sorted. Her son, little Orion, was asleep in his stroller beside them. The winter sun cast a soft golden glow across the snow, making the scene feel strangely magical. Elysia stood quietly for a moment, her breath visible in the cold air, her eyes reflecting a mix of courage and vulnerability. Then she asked him the question he never expected to hear. She asked if he could be her new husband. Not out of desperation, not out of loneliness, but because she said she had watched him all afternoon, watched his patience with his daughter, his kindness towards strangers, his humility, his gentleness, the way he tried to hide his sadness, yet still showed up for others. She said her son deserved someone like that, and she said she didn't want to walk through life being strong alone anymore. The words hit Rowan with a force he couldn't describe. His heart stumbled in shock. His first instinct was disbelief. He had spent so long feeling unwanted, unseen, forgotten by the world, and here was a woman who noticed every part of him in a single afternoon, someone who saw value in him where others turned away. He felt tears sting the corners of his eyes despite trying to blink them back. He told her he wasn't sure he had anything to offer, just a little girl, an old truck, and a house full of broken memories. But Elysia stepped closer and told him those things weren't burdens. They were pieces of a life she wanted to help rebuild, a life she believed deserved joy again. Rowan had never felt such warmth flood his chest. The emotions, shock, gratitude, longing, hope, blurred together until he felt almost weightless. Briar tugged on his sleeve, asking in her innocent way if Miss Alicia could come over for Christmas breakfast. And when he looked down into his daughter's hopeful eyes, something inside him cracked completely open. The answer was yes, not just to breakfast, but to possibility. They didn't rush into anything. They didn't exchange promises that afternoon. Instead, they spent hours talking in the winter sunlight while Orion slept and Briar made little snow angels. They shared stories, fears, dreams, and all the quiet hopes they had hidden away for years. And by the time the sun began to set, Rowan knew that something extraordinary had begun. Not a fairy tale miracle, but something real, something earned, something beautifully unexpected. Months later, after slow steps, shared dinners, playground afternoons, and gentle healing, Rowan realized he had fallen in love. Not just with Alicia, but with the version of himself she helped him rediscover. And one morning, with Orion on his hip and Briar holding a handmade bouquet, he asked her the same question she had once asked him in that snowy garden. She said yes through tears. If this story touched your heart even a little, please like, comment, share, and subscribe. Your engagement keeps these meaningful stories alive. Before the ending, I invite you to comment the word hope. If you believe everyone deserves a second chance at love. And so, their Christmas story wasn't a miracle of fate. It was a miracle of courage, of two broken hearts choosing each other, and of the simple truth that love often arrives when we finally stop looking and start healing. If you want, I can also generate SEO titles, descriptions, thumbnails, text, tags, hashtags, wongs, or a Keat Shorts version.